I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them. We have these ships that go underwater, nuclear submarines.
Mitt Romney wants a much bigger Navy. Do we need it? Can we pay for it? That, of course, is what's being talked about after that quip that you saw on the debate. Meanwhile, Barack Obama wants to do more with less. Will that weaken our national defense? To help answer those questions, Wall Street Journal's national security reporter Diane Nissenbaum joins us now. Diane, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So the horses and bayonets line that comes from Mitt Romney saying we don't have as many ships today, or we've drawn down the Navy to a point, brings us back to World War I. This kind of underlines really a real difference in strategy between the two candidates. And first of all, I want you to lay out what is the president's policy and where is the U.S. Navy today?
Well, right now the Navy's at about 287 ships, and if you actually do look at the numbers, that's actually larger than it was under the last president, President Bush. So the numbers there are a little fuzzy. What President Obama is looking to do is increase the number of ships over the next 10 years to about 313 is what he'd like to do. The president has been focusing on this, what they call this pivot to Asia and the Pacific as the wars in Afghanistan wind down. They want to move the ships and rebalance the fleet, which is now 50-50 Atlantic Pacific, and move it to a 60-40 split with 60% in the Pacific. And what Governor Romney is saying is that, look, if you're going to make that move, then you need more ships. Governor Romney's talking about 350 ships, building 350 ships, and increasing the number of ships to be built over the next few years.
Now, to be clear here, there's also a real difference in cost potentially. So under President Obama, besides the change in naval tactics, he also wants to draw down troops. And meanwhile, Mitt Romney doesn't want to do that and wants to boost the fleet. Can he? Let's focus on that. Can he pay for that?
Well, that's one of the big questions, and that's certainly one of the big criticisms that you'll hear from the Obama campaign, is that Governor Romney wants to increase the ship size, as you said. The president's plan talks about reducing the Army and the Marines by about 100,000 forces. Governor Romney says he wants to stop that from happening, and then if you're going to build more ships, you need more people to put on them, so you'd probably have to add more people there. There are estimates that the governor's plan could add $2 trillion to the Pentagon budget over 10 years, and you know, we're in tight budgetary times. Everybody knows this. How do you pay for that? And outside analysts say there are three ways to do that. Either you cut other programs, you raise taxes, or you increase the deficit. Now, Governor Romney says that, well, they can make up a lot of this by efficiencies of the Pentagon. You try and reform the way that you buy the planes and the ships and reduce costs there. You get rid of some of the civilian workforce that's grown exponentially, and you try and deal with other reforms and bloat and what they see in the Pentagon. There's a lot of people that think that would be really difficult to do, to get to $2 trillion over the next 10 years. So it's a numbers question.
Diane, you also spent a lot of time in Afghanistan recently. And I want to ask you really, how does your time there talk about, again, really the difference in policy among the candidates in Afghanistan as well, and what the impact will be there?
Well, in the debate on Monday night, you did hear Governor Romney say very firmly that he believes that the troops should leave in 2014. He hasn't been as firm on that deadline in the past. I think that both candidates are certainly leading towards a drawdown of the war. I think the interesting thing to watch going forward is what we do about negotiating what's called this status of forces agreement, which would allow the United States to leave a certain number of troops in Afghanistan to deal with threats from Pakistan and try and deal with al-Qaeda coming back and trying to prevent the Taliban from regaining power there. You'll remember, of course, that the United States, President Obama, weren't able to get a status of forces agreement in Iraq, which led to the pullout. And that was a source of friction in the debate on Monday night. And I think we need to watch and see what they both want to do, or what the next president wants to do in terms of trying to negotiate the status of forces agreement and what that will really mean for the U.S. troop presence there going forward. It's a question I'd like to see addressed a bit more, actually, but probably not before the campaign is over.
We all would. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Diane.